Us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot to get into here today, but so this is kind of one of those days when we had some things, working on some topics for y'all, and all that gets thrown right the heck out the window as some major news comes in. So spoiler alert for what we are going to be talking about, and I'm assuming going to be taking up quite a lot of the subject matter today. El Paso's city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, has had his vote on his contract to be terminated. That is the vote coming down from City Council not too long before we ended up going on air here today. The decision being made in a 5-4 tie-breaking vote cast by the mayor in order to give, again, the city manager since coming up on, I think, better part of a decade now, 2014, I do believe, is when he was hired, to be given 120 days notice of termination as per his contract. So there's a lot to delve into there, including how this meeting has progressed, what our news partners over at KFOX 14 have been reporting on, what is visible, and kind of what comes next, as well as response coming within this meeting. So, yeah, that's a thing, and a pretty major one that would see, well, a lot of topics that we have been discussing on this program, among other things, kind of coming to a head, but we'll delve further into that. In other words, we're also going to be talking about still some wind damage recovery and some tips being talked about there, but then also going to be discussing the downtown deck plaza. We had given a bit of an update on that, at the very least, where the concept of the whole project stands. So we're able to do an interview, get some input from one of the major organizations coming along with it, the Paso del Norte Community Foundation, speaking with the CEO there of kind of what's going on right now, the community meetings, the input that they are seeking from y'all, and the potentials for this project. So still a lot to get into here for you today. But yeah, John Browson referencing he wants his $1 million payout, referring there to the very interesting parts of the contract that we've had a lot of conversation on in recent days, weeks, months, and technically years. All of those actually apply in this case because, yes, so again, anyone just joining us here, El Paso City Manager contract to be terminated. That is the headline from our news partners over there at KFOX 14. Been in the meeting since, all day it does look like. Been kind of a contentious one. Actually went into executive session at 1:28 p.m. to get legal counsel on items after the whole idea of this. And yeah, Tommy Gonzalez having been city manager since 2014, and this coming definitely after that recent election that we saw a couple of new city council representatives coming in, most notably, of course, on this item, very specifically for anyone playing along at home. It was item 23 on this city council agenda, discussion and action on the employment agreement between the city of El Paso and the city manager. There wasn't a whole lot of background on that item, so a lot of speculation was out, but, Representative Joe Molinar, but then for district number 4, and Brian Kennedy, of course, the new one for district number 1, putting this on there. And yeah, there is a lot of money that's going to end up coming along with this any way that you slice it, because if you may remember, there was last year that whole kerfuffle involving the city manager's contract, the extension of it, what the pay could be. The cap that it was capped at $450,000. $450,000, just in case I misspoke there. And now we are looking at the potential payouts coming along with that, as John Brazelton was mentioning there. So let's just break down some of the things that are going into this, as he now has 120 days. Headline from El Paso Matters on this. City manager Tommy Gonzalez fired, given 120 days notice of termination. So that is part of the contract that goes into this. So we're looking at a July date, or June-July date, I do believe. And I think some of the notable things that come along with this is this was a 5-4 vote in order to move forward with that. For anyone kind of counting at home, might be wondering, wait, how does that one work? Because aren't there 8 city council seats? You'd be correct. The mayor, Oscar Leeser, was the tie-breaking vote on this. We did have city reps Brian Kennedy, Alessandra Anello, Joe Molinar, and Art Fierro voting to terminate Tommy Gonzalez's contract in 120 days, and therefore voting against it. we did have, of course, the remaining city council members. Of course, Cassandra Hernandez, Isabel Sacido, Henry Rivera, and Chris Canales. So not exactly a uniform new council vote on this. Canales, of course, notably getting his seat in this recent election. So was evenly split, but the mayor has now stepped in to pass that tie breaking votes. Now, there's a whole lot more that we're going to be getting into this probably throughout the hour, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of feedback coming from people wanting to chime in on this. Some already over on the social media. Thank you for chiming in there. If you do so, choose to do so. Now, some of the questions have come, as again, kind of John Brazelton was alluding to, sometimes referred to as golden parachute, that kind of an idea, but it's his contract, that if he is, let's find the exact language here, that if he is not terminated for cause, among other things, he is entitled to any remaining benefits that he has as part of that contract, as well as an entire year's worth of salary. So he's not at that $450,000 currently. He did not at the cap just yet. He's at approximately $430,000, give or take. And so with this happening, commentary coming out about that, he does have, there's a little bit of nebulousness there because it's not totally clear or public information, as it's often considered, at least when requests come in for that kind of thing, a personnel issue. How many remaining benefits, sick days, etc., that he might have accrued that would be a part of the payout of this. But it's been estimated to, and being noted by our news partners at KFOX 14 there, of being up to that $1 million amount. So these are the things going on right before we get on air here today, and just kind of having us throw out all those existing plans. There's a lot more that's already been noted as coming from our city council members, among other things, and then also those that were speaking in there, at least a few dozen people that were signed up to speak as part of the public comment on this. It did not initially go into executive session, and that was one of the things that was being noted ahead of this. So executive session is where that city council gets up out of their seats, goes into that back room, and does the quote-unquote consultation with attorney, which I'm sure they do, but it definitely seems to go on for a long time, and the fact that it's come out and sometimes the vote is just taken and no further action has always been professionally frustrating to me. So this did eventually go into executive session on that point there at the urging of the city attorney, but there's probably a whole lot more fallout of this. So technically, it's being put out there that, again, the city manager has been fired, but this is not a don't let the door hit you on the way out kind of situation. There's a 120-day countdown going on now. Technically, notice of intent to terminate is one of the more specific ways to put it there, I guess. So, again, he is entitled to, again, noted by El Paso Matters here, 12 months of his base salary, in addition to unused vacation and sick leave, and his car allowance to the date of termination, among other benefits. So it is speculable that it could be up to about $1 million. There wasn't a whole lot of speculation on what this item would be, but yeah, we're looking at that. Again, noted by El Paso Matters here. The end of that notification period would be June 28th. Hell of a contract. So we'll see what more ends up coming out of this. And we got a lot more response that has come out of these meetings and the points of this. A lot of commentary already there. James Holmes saying kudos to the two reps that are trying to represent. And Luisa Pena saying that glad this was finally done. I was a city employee for over 23 years. We're never really happy with him. And Doug which wrote the acronym from Louis Panado there, saying this grifter got enough out of El Paso, and Austin Redfern, nice parachute. So a lot of commentary. I'm sure we'll get into this, and don't worry, we'll definitely have the phone calls a little bit later in the show, but already due for that first break of this hour right now. You are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Yeah, this is going to be a major topic we're exploring today, but we do have some things of other pressing nature we'll also be exploring today. That downtown deck plaza project, the proposal for it. Anyway, series of community meetings and inputs going on right now, so I was able to have a conversation with one of the major organizations involved, Tracy Yellen, the CEO for the Paso del Norte Community Foundation, of kind of what they're looking at, what those ongoing meetings are that will technically be going on kind of during this program, but also there's another one tomorrow, don't worry, so you can still stay informed and head to that one. So stay tuned, more after this first break of this hour here on Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Like I said, phone calls later, comments going on throughout. In any case, don't go anywhere. Back after this quick break.
traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy traffic on I-10 eastbound for roadwork. This is causing heavy slowing between Executive Center Boulevard and Schuster Avenue. Also watch for slowing for an accident reported on Shadow Mountain Drive at Caprock Court. You could use Thunderbird Drive instead to access Caprock, and also a medical emergency fire crew staged Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue. That's your traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Has conservatism failed? Listen to Red Pilled America this week as we follow the rise of the 2020 insurrection and tell the story of how a Catholic enclave treated one of its own. Listen to Red Pilled America on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America, a storytelling show.
This year is the year to learn a new language with Rosetta Stone. No matter what's inspiring you to learn a language, travel, work, family, or just for fun, the Rosetta Stone app makes it easy to get started and stay motivated to reach your goals. Right now, get a lifetime unlimited subscription with forever access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages for 40% off. Visit rosettastone.com today and save 40%. Rosetta Stone, how language is learned.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
On the podcast Really No Really, join best friends Jason Alexander and Peter Tilden, along with experts, newsmakers, and celebrities, in a search for answers to life's most baffling, intriguing, and annoying questions. You know, those things that make you go, really? No, really?
I think there was a 17-year-old in Rhode Island who ran a candidate that was a deepfake.
Really? Wait, that's news to me. That's Really No Really right there.
Really No Really.
Listen to Really No Really on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity during tax season because so much sensitive info is all together.
Before we start the annual meeting of Sean's personal info, has anyone seen Social Security number?
Not me.
Nope.
Nuh-uh.
Oh, no. He's been stolen.
LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. If you become a victim, we'll work to fix it. No one can monitor all transactions, but you can save up to 25% off your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Identity theft protection starts here.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. Several social media pages, of course, we're up on facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but then others on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Andrew J. Polk or Talk El Paso. A lot of commentary coming in there already, as we were kind of already expecting that for this program today, but with that amped up level, again, if you're just joining us, El Paso City Manager has been given notice of termination. In short, or at least it's being referred to as such, fired. Now, it's not an immediate thing because it's 120 days notice, so we're looking at end of June, early July kind of thing, but this 5-4 vote with Mayor Oscar Leeser casting the tie-breaking vote, going to be sending a lot of shockwaves through city government and probably other parts of the community as well. I mean, just think about what's going on right now as it is. We already have the need for a search for a new chief of police, and now there's going to have to be something going on with the city manager. At least for now, at least one comment coming on there, including Marky Mandingo, saying, what a scam, go back to the strong mayor governments. That's been one of those we've talked about that more than a few times and beyond the subtext, but in the official action anyway, that has been a subtext that has been getting discussed. So Whether this leads to that trajectory, that's maybe a little bit too early to say. I definitely know that there are those that are interested in, including what Marky there was saying. It's not currently on the ballot, so it would not be on this coming May election, but I wouldn't be too surprised if it ends up in, like, say, 2024 or such, given the way this is going. But for the moment, for the time being, looking at the need for another city manager, or at the very least an interim one, to be appointed either around that time frame, again, like late June, early July, or now. Some of those questions we have to be answered that we'll definitely be delving into a whole lot more during the rest of this program today. But in the meantime, I do have an interview for you today on a separate and big project, big thing that could be happening here in El Paso. We've had more than a little bit discussion about what is going on with I-10, the downtown Reimagine I-10 projects, and this has mostly been focused on, like, the roadway itself, because, well, that's what the work is being done on, but that's not the only part of it, of course. We had mentioned it at least a couple times in recent weeks of what is going to be coming kind of after that. The downtown Deck Plaza Foundation has been established at kind of under the auspices of the Paso del Norte Community Foundation, and they're currently not quite going on today, but shortly will be. But then also tomorrow, community meetings, open houses, seeking for information and input from the community on the possibility of doing something different, particularly after that construction is done. So was able to sit down and again speak with Tracy Yellen, CEO of the Paso del Norte Community Foundation, on kind of what information they are both putting out, what they're seeking, and how you all can interact with that. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Tracy Yellen, CEO for the Paso del Norte Community Foundation and Paso del Norte Health Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Happy to have you all on because there's been a lot of discussion that has been happening on things developing, being built, or the prospect for them here. And so specifically, there is a set of community meetings, open houses that have been going on, including into this week here, that involve that I-10 Deck Plaza in downtown El Paso. Now, we have discussed this a couple previous times on our airwaves. There are some graphics we've put up as well. But for those unfamiliar with this concept or just haven't heard about it before, what is this topic that you all are discussing and having these meetings on?
Sure. So the city of El Paso received a $900,000 planning grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, a RAISE grant, to do a feasibility study for putting a cap over I-10 in the downtown corridor to reconnect the neighborhoods, communities that have been separated by the freeway, for decades, and also to create this regional amenity for our entire region. Potentially 12-acre green space with hike-bike features and amenities. But that's really what these public meetings are about, to provide information to the community about what a deck plaza is, where they have been built in other communities, because there are many of them that have already been completed in other cities, over freeways to reconnect communities and for other reasons. And then also to get people's input on, if we were to be able to build this and it proves feasible and we can, of course, figure out how to pay for it and all of that, what would we like to see on it? In some communities, they have dog parks and recreation space and food trucks and vendors for small businesses. So lots and lots of possibilities.
So this has, of course, been a part of, or will really come out of, the many different things going on with the roadways in El Paso, specifically I-10. We've got the whole Reimagine I-10 discussion we've had previously with, say, TxDOT here in town. Kind of an example, if not exactly the same impact we're seeing here, would be like the expansion that's happening in Northwest El Paso near the New Mexico state line, because really all of I-10 throughout the entire El Paso County is kind of up for revamp, up for refit. I mean, there's been a lot of work going on with this. So this would come after that point here. And to our understanding, there still are some questions about what might actually be going on in downtown, and specifically with the roadway. So how does that then fit in with this, again, potential for this, or at the very least the feasibility study for that downtown deck? What are kind of some of the kind of things to be determined that will substantively affect this project?
Right. Great question. So separate from this process, as you mentioned, TxDOT has done a study of I-10. Their recommendations are that I-10 be rebuilt. It's over a 50-year freeway. There are potholes and things that about the kind of roadway itself that they would like reconstructed. in the process of doing that, they, whether or not they expand lanes and all of that, and, if people have concerns or questions about what TxDOT's plans are, they really need to reach out to TxDOT to express those. But as they work in the downtown segment, they also, as they kind of affect the roadway, they have to legally raise the height of those bridges that cross I-10 in the downtown area. So from Campbell to Prospect. And so there would be an evaluation of the bridges, and then gives us the opportunity to, as TxDOT rebuilds those, to perhaps create something better than just bridges over I-10, and to use the resources that TxDOT would assign to the project of rebuilding I-10 and leverage funding and the timing of construction, like retaining walls and the bridges, like I mentioned, to be a major financial contributor to the potential for having a deck over I-10. Right now, that deck is not part of their alternative. They had originally shared images of what a deck plaza could look like when the beginning of their study process, and that's really how we learned about what a deck project is. We were working on trail projects, a master plan for a 68-mile trail across El Paso County, and trying to figure out how do you, go from the Upper Valley through Sunland Park, down, Executive Center, through UTEP, through Sunset Heights, through downtown, to the Franklin Canal on the other side, to the MCA, to Escalante Park, to the missions and the agricultural areas of the county. And really, as we were looking at how do you traverse downtown, that's when we got involved in this deck project and got really excited about the potential of what that renewed built environment could be for our community. And that's sort of how it interfaces or relates to what TxDOT's work on I-10.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Tracy Yellen, CEO for the Paso del Norte Community Foundation. Again, if you want to find out anything more about what we're talking about, some of these concepts here, again, the specific Downtown Deck Plaza, that's the website, downtowndeckplaza.org. So downtown, DECKPLAZA.org. And you've got some renderings, some examples, some possibilities, but kind of the real important reason, one of the reasons we're talking about this right now, is that y'all are having a set of, again, those community meetings, open houses, in order to talk further about this, right?
Yeah, so we're hosting 3 public meetings. One was yesterday, there's one tonight, and there's one tomorrow. Tomorrow will be held from 4:30 to 6:30 in an open house format in downtown in the Blue Flame building on the 17th floor. The first meeting was at the Pebble Hills Regional Command Center. The meeting today is at the West Side Regional Command Center, and then tomorrow is downtown on the 17th floor of the Blue Flame building. And so you can come and learn about the history of the disconnection, the history of I-10. You can come learn about where these projects have been successful in other places, and kind of the reasons and the drivers for those projects in other cities. We'd also love to hear from people about what they are concerned about, what they'd love to see in a space like that. And we'll have maps where people can draw and dream and envision what might be possible, and also give feedback again about where people are concerned about how it might be built or what the footprint could look like, et cetera. But the public can also provide some comments on the website. So downtowndeckplaza.org, as you mentioned, it has an interactive mapping tool where you could drop a pin in different areas in the study area to provide specific comments. There are also kind of general comments, and of course, people are always welcome to reach out to me to talk more about it and provide their input and feedback.
A little bit more specific about this project, then, at the very least, the study y'all are doing into it. So, I mean, of course, anyone who has driven through the downtown area, the trench, as it's often referred to here, would be familiar with the idea that, yeah, there's this kind of, gap in between, downtown, and you kind of head north into like the Sunset Heights area, and it kind of just, drops off and there's a roadway. So conceptually, yes, this would be kind of putting I-10, once the construction is done, this deck plaza underground, but it's not exactly a tunnel, and more like just kind of putting a cap and a roof on it. That's the reason you're referring to it as a deck, and therefore kind of from the ground level looking across, it would seem like a continuity as opposed to a drop off and then, downtown kind of on this island sort of concept is what we're talking about here, right?
Right, exactly. I think that's described perfectly. So if you drive through this area, you can see there are kind of some sloped retaining walls I'm guessing that the retaining walls would be straightened out, leveled, and then you could potentially put a cap on top of it on which you could then build grassy space. You could build courts. You could build venue space for events, concerts, etc., recreation. Again, that's what we all get to dream about, but it will be seamless. It won't be built above the level of downtown or the neighborhoods on the other side. And if you're driving underneath it, you won't know that you're driving under a park, or if you're on the park, you might not even know that there's a freeway underneath you. So if you visit these spaces in other places, you would never know that they were connected to or above a freeway. And there's some precedent in our region. It's interesting. I didn't live in El Paso. I'm not sure when exactly we either built over or the railroad built under downtown to go through. So there is already kind of a precedent where we've built over transportation or under, where the train goes through downtown. And also even in Juarez, where you look at the plaza, they built under the plaza to create that pedestrian walkway from the 16th of September to around the cathedral and Mercado area of downtown Juarez. So, not dissimilar to that.
Yeah, interesting reference you make there to the sunken railways that used to cross the surface level streets in downtown El Paso. Was a useful thing when the railways were first coming through, and as the city has grown and transportation's needs have changed, became less useful, so got put down there. I think a viaduct or a similar kind of phrase applies to that one you're talking about. If anyone's unfamiliar with that, it's the one that goes eventually right by the ballpark, among other things. So when it comes to this, I mean, a lot of questions come up about, okay, what's the feasibility? What does this end up looking like? What's the cost going to be? But we're kind of, it sounds like, in more preliminary stages right now about what it could look like, and then all these other questions will come down the line. Or what's the kind of time frames we're looking at this point?
Right. So the first phase of this feasibility study will be completed in the May-June timeframe. At that point, we should have a fairly high, a good estimate, a kind of high-level estimate of the cost and sources of revenue as part of the feasibility study, where they're looking at engineering and landscape architecture, water management. Also, what opportunities do we have to be inventive and creative? How can we capture carbon? How can we create this green space that would be good for the environment, diminish sound, kind of things that we've heard that are really important to residents in our region. And then, of course, the really important, and then like amenities, what would go on top, and then, of course, what that all would cost. They're doing an economic feasibility study as well to look at what kind of buildings and development could happen around it, where we have dual goals of really safeguarding the residents who've been here a long, long time, which is, something that's important to me, but also attracting density and new residents in areas where there are surface lots or other places where there are real potential to grow a population that is interested in that urban lifestyle. And that could be anywhere from students that are at UTEP to, people who live downtown. Also, it would be amenity for people who already live here, obviously, from South El Paso to the university area. So a pretty wide swath. And then, of course, a destination for people that would come to downtown or to visit it. So cost, of course, is really important to our community. We need to know this. We need to know, what it would cost and how do we pay for it? What parts of the underneath structures might TxDOT be willing to pay for? With the infrastructure bill passed by the Biden administration, Congress, and signed by the Biden administration, what opportunities are there for funding federal funds for these kinds of projects, which are priority projects for the administration? So how much money can we leverage outside of El Paso to cover the cost of this? And then what would the gap be? And then have really honest community conversations around those gaps and the importance of, investing in this space in our community, either through philanthropy and other sources.
So again, with those meetings going on, as we're airing this recording, actually, one of them going on right now for that Tuesday one. But again, they still have another chance to go to that one that is happening tomorrow, Wednesday, March 1st at the Blue Flame Building, 304 Texas Avenue. Again, that from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. to get more information. And again, very importantly, feedback. So then a little bit on what's going to happen here. You mentioned, kind of that a little bit more towards the middle of the year timeframe for the completion of this feasibility study. How will this kind of impact this input that you all are taking be formed and fused into that final product?
Yeah, so what we'll get with that final product is could be the basis of grant applications to the federal government to see what kind of funding we could secure to support the design and construction of the actual facility. Obviously, we would have to work with TxDOT and coordinate with the construction of I-10 at whatever point that takes place. The idea would make that as seamless as possible. The deck, TxDOT could, go forward with I-10 without a deck, so that it's not some sort of quid pro quo by any means. We would love for them to adopt it, but it's not a condition of I-10 or vice versa. So, ultimately, we would love, again, for them to be enthusiastic about it, to make this sort of investment in our region. And we want it to be in the scale that's appropriate for downtown and an urban environment. So, this is not building a spaghetti bowl in the downtown corridor in that urban core. It's building something to scale of our neighborhoods.
Again, guest right now has been Tracy Yellen, the CEO of the Paso del Norte Community Foundation. Again, more information on this, the details, some of the renderings, and of course, how to be involved with, again, the upcoming or ongoing meetings, or just provide your feedback, even just online. The place to do that, of course, is downtowndeckplaza.org. That's downtown, DECKPLAZA.org. So, Tracy, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about what you all are asking for the community to give their input and ideas upon what that'll end up looking like, what that could go into, and kind of what the future potentials are here today.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much for having us, and we really welcome everyone's participation.
So again, those meetings that are going on, actually one right now, but if you weren't able to make that, don't worry, there is at least one more that's happening. The one happening tomorrow, Wednesday, March 1st, from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. At the Bloom Flame Building, 304 Texas Avenue on the 17th floor. Had a lot of back and forth with that in the comments as well, and the potentials of it. So again, this is feasibility. Well, this came out of the initial feasibility. Now looking for the community feedback and input, those kind of things. They do have an interactive map that only has like a dozen or so entries on it right now. So definitely a lot more possible and probably needed for a project, a potential like this. So again, that website, downtowndeckplaza.org. So that's overdue for that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we're talking about the other major news of the day, what's going on with the city manager, and as more details and response is trickling out of that city council meeting today. Again, the spoiler alert there, he has been voted to be terminated, 120 days notice. So there's a lot more to come, but we'll get into a whole lot more. You're, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Back after this quick break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. El Paso City Council voted today to terminate the contract of City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. The motion was sponsored by newly elected City Rep Brian Kennedy. Mayor Oscar Leeser broke the tie in favor of terminating the contract. Gonzalez, who has been city manager since 2014, will stay on the job for another 4 months, as stipulated in his contract. Gonzalez earns more than $430,000 a year. Under a previous city council last year, his contract had been extended by 5 years. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heavy traffic on I-10 eastbound for road work. This is causing heavy slowing between Executive Center Boulevard and Schuster Avenue. Also watch for slowing for an accident reported on Shadow Mountain Drive at Caprock Court. You could use Thunderbird Drive instead to access Caprock, and also a medical emergency fire crew staged Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue. That's your traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It looks like a gusty and warm one for tomorrow. Windy conditions, southwest winds 35 up to 45 miles per hour. Going to see highs in the lower 70s for our Wednesday, and then big changes for your Thursday. Mostly cloudy, windy, and colder. 40% chance of flurries for your Thursday morning, so bundle up for your Thursday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Has conservatism failed? Listen to Red Pilled America this week as we follow the rise of the 2020 insurrection and tell the story of how a Catholic enclave treated one of its own. Listen to Red Pilled America on the iHeart Radio app or anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America, a storytelling show.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language in as little as 3 weeks? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
Babbel's interactive lessons are created by real language teachers and voiced by real native speakers using a modern conversation-based method. So in no time, you can start speaking confidently about real-life topics in another language.
Nosotras vamos a México en 2 días y ahora hablamos español. Gracias, Babbel. Sí, muchas gracias.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at babbel.com. Just go to babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's babbel.com. BABBEL.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Want to save 50% on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters with free shipping and prices less than big box retailers. And right now, save 50% off any order during Blindster's extended President's Day sale. Hurry, sale ends March 1st. Blindster.com. This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there as well, dropping those likes and reacts. We appreciate Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, and Angel Rueda. A lot of conversations on, well, both that interview we just had, including John Brazelton saying about the potential for the projects. A little maybe ungenerous, saying something for 18-wheelers to run into on their way through El Paso. This would be out of the way of the 18-wheelers. So if we have flying 18-wheelers, we have several separate problems going on in that case here. But Louis Pinato saying his part there, that there are fantasy projects always hurt the surrounding businesses and inconvenience the public needlessly. Don't know about that, but he does make the mention of San Jacinto Plaza and the impact there. I mean, there is a aspect of growing pains. I mean, if we never built anything new, we'd still have be before 19th century buildings at this point here. So, I mean, progress and the ability to make new things does take some time. Whether or not it's feasible, a good idea or not, well, that's kind of the point of these community meetings. So whether you can make your own opinion on this project, what you think about it, but if you want to find out more information and the details putting out, again, those meetings, actually one going on right now, but don't worry, there is one more tomorrow of this series. I am positive there will be more. That one going on again tomorrow, Wednesday, March 1st, 2023, open house from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Blue Flame Building, 304 Texas Avenue on the 17th floor. So if you want to, Abel Rodriguez chiming in, what a day, damn, hello. Yeah, hello to you as well, because, the other major story we're talking about today, El Paso City Manager has been given notice of termination. yeah, okay, that's being put maybe a little more pithily by others as fired and given 120 days notice of termination. But yes, it was voted on today, a little bit, maybe in about an hour or a little bit more than an hour before we got on air here today, that, again, El Paso's long-running city manager since 2014, Tommy Gonzalez, will be given until late June, early July to find something else. 120 days notice, which I think comes out to, at least according to the math from El Paso Matters there, at the like June 28th. And they also do note more response coming out here, but let's just get into the base facts coming out from our news partners at KFOX 14. Executive session did go into, the city council went to executive session, that is at 1:28 today, to get legal counsel for that. Item number 23, which reads as follows. Discussion and action on the employment agreement between the city of El Paso and the city manager, as again sponsored by new city rep for district number 1, Brian Kennedy, and a previous city rep and still on there, not up for election this time around, for district number 4, Joe Molinar. And there wasn't a whole lot of clarity on that, actually, on what the point is. The item itself wasn't put on to executive session, and El Paso Matters note that there was quite a bit of back and forth, and that specifically it took at least 3 different votes, with Mayor Leeser actually having cast the tie-breaking ballot, keeping it out of executive session before that point, voting twice against, quoting the El Paso Matter article on the subject here. Council voted twice against discussing Gonzalez's contract behind closed doors in executive session before outside legal counsel, Leah Rhymes, advised council against talking about it in public, and that there were about 35 people that had signed up, according to our news partners at KFOX 14, in order to speak on this, including former mayors John Cook, Dee Margo, and many others. So there's a lot more response that we'll try to delve into here. But so with the vote coming out of it, the mayor did cast the tie-breaking vote, making it 5-4 in order to serve the notice of termination to city manager Tommy Gonzalez, giving him that again on 120 days. Noted by El Paso Matters here, it was said that Councilwoman Alessandra Salcido in this case. We're talking about $1 million decision here, later adding that Gonzalez's severance package would cost payers, quote, about $900,000, end quote. And it's also noted by El Paso Matters that neither Kennedy nor Molinar have addressed why they wanted to discuss the contract. Speaking to them last week, those individuals said they could not comment because it was, quote unquote, a personnel matter. So this is quite the sea change. And what happens next? Again, 120 days. Some of the questions that we have at this point that we'll get good answers to or not, at least in short term, will be, again, is there going to be an interim announced? We already have some of the, we have deputy city managers and assistant ones. So there is infrastructure under the city manager position that could potentially fill in, but what kind of timeframes that will be, if there will be anything sought after that. These are all the questions kind of remaining, TBD, at least in public announcements. Some of the response I want to give here, particularly as noted by, again, our news partners at KFOX 14, Leeser said in actually doing the tie-breaking vote to keep this discussion, at least initially, out of executive session, saying, quote, "This is not an evaluation or performance evaluation on the city manager, and that's important to note." And then some of the commentary coming in from former city mayor, actually, John Cook said, if I can get this pulled up here, he said, quote, "I recently got the annual report, and I was impressed with the progress the city has made. First of all, you have a mayor and council who set the vision and goals, and those are objective goals that have to be measured. When evaluating the city manager, you evaluate whether he's achieved those goals or hasn't. The council also has control of the budget. The city manager doesn't approve the budget. You guys do. He'll tell you what he thinks, but the final budget, after it's amended by the elected officials, I'm confused on what is actually going on here." So there's a lot more coming into this and a lot more response that we will be delving into. But at this point, let's go ahead and come back after this first break and go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the program, which I am sure we'll have as long as they're actually working today. Hopefully no more storm damage, or at least any lingering. We are going to be taking those, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of response there. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We'll take those phone calls here. Your 2 cents on this and the other things affecting us here in the borderland. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy traffic on I-10 eastbound for roadwork. This is causing heavy slowing between Executive Center Boulevard and Schuster Avenue. Also watch for slowing for an accident reported on Shadow Mountain Drive at Caprock Court. You could use Thunderbird Drive instead to access Caprock, and also a medical emergency fire crew staged Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue. That's your traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Has conservatism failed? Listen to Red Pilled America this week as we follow the rise of the 2020 insurrection and tell the story of how a Catholic enclave treated one of its own. Listen to Red Pilled America on the iHeart Radio app or anywhere you get podcasts. That's Red Pilled America, a storytelling show.
Are you working way too hard for way too little? There's never been a better time to consider a career in IT. You could enjoy a recession-resistant career in a rewarding field with plenty of growth opportunities and often flexible work environments. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You could start your new career in months, not years. Take classes online or on campus, and financial aid is available to qualified students, including the GI Bill. Now is the time. mycomputercareer.edu.
On the podcast, The Last Soviet, Lance Bass from NSYNC shares his own experiences of astronaut training in Russia. Yes, that's true. And tells the story of the final cosmonaut, a man trapped in space while his nation crumbled to the ground.
His name is Sergei Krikalev. He's a Soviet cosmonaut, and he's manning the world's only space station, the pride and joy of the USSR.
Listen to The Last Soviet on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Josh, quote, "After walking around my whole life being a mouth breather, I was excited to try Navage. I read the directions carefully, pressed the button, and oh my gosh, what a sensation. So much mucus, so much crud, but oh sweet, merciful air I can finally breathe you through my nose. Never have I ever taken such an amazing breath in my life. This is a life changer," unquote. He's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Want to save 50% on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters with free shipping and prices less than big box retailers. And right now, save 50% off any order during Blindster's extended President's Day sale. Hurry, sale ends March 1st. Blindster.com.
The Good Feet Store, improving people's lives 2 feet at a time.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show, however you may be tuning in, be it on air, online, live streaming through the very reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on our social media. We do have that phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you want to add your 2 cents on some of those big-ish topics that we're getting into here today. Again, the future of the city manager now very much in a countdown mode. 120 days given now for a notice of termination for El Paso's long-running city manager, Tommy Gonzalez. And what comes next? Again, this is not on the city manager form of government, which we've had some previous discussions on how it came to be about, but there is subtext. There's plenty of subtext and even the explicit text on this whole idea and this going towards it. So if we're looking at this beginning, the realignment of the actual city government and the way that it is working here, again, not on, at least not in this format, on this upcoming vote, but do feel like it's worthy to mention that we do have that actual charter amendment and a couple of different very important things on there. Now, I haven't forgotten about some of the promises that I've made there, including trying to break down some of the major parts that are being put forth on, among other things, the actual climate policy charter amendment for the 2023 uniform election that we are, again, May coming up there. The details are now up and available over on epcountyvotes.com. Well, at least the dates are up there to actually find the details on it. We've shared that link a couple of times to the actual ordinance information. It's about 9 pages total, 7 substantive pages of very thick legalese, but we're still planning on breaking that down for you. But again, this is just one of those days, given that city manager being fired is kind of a huge, big, impacting deal. So that's what we're probably going to be continuing to talk about today. So again, if you want to get on that line, add your 2 cents that way, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Going to go ahead and take that next break for the top of the hour here right now. And if anyone's having trouble getting through, particularly any of our commenters online, because we've had a few calls come in and not be able to be answered there. If we're having any issues, let us know. Didn't have anything explicitly we are aware of from the windstorms, but those impacts do continue in other parts of the city, so it's no reason to think that we're totally immune. So give it a shot if you can. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Go ahead and take that break for the top of the hour so we can get those calls in line. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I'm sure a lot of talk wanted to be happening on this, and we'll do the best we can to represent that. Back after this break and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy traffic on I-10 eastbound for roadwork. This is causing heavy slowing between Executive Center Boulevard and Schuster Avenue. Also watch for slowing for an accident reported on Shadow Mountain Drive at Caprock Court. You could use Thunderbird Drive instead to access Caprock, and also a medical emergency fire crew staged Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue. That's your traffic.
Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now. I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, the free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get real money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
Yep, I get real cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code DRIVE for an extra 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code DRIVE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code DRIVE.
When a person has a cardiac arrest, survival depends on immediately receiving CPR from someone nearby. Only about 40% of people who experience an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest receive the immediate help that they need before professional help arrives. Music can save lives. Songs like Stayin' Alive by the Bee Gees or Crazy in Love by Beyoncé have 100 to 120 beats per minute, the same rate at which you should perform compressions when administering CPR. Head to iheart.com/CPR playlist for a full list of songs.
All right, class, let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home. Wow, awesome. Where were you, Jill? Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
Hey,
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Americans waiting to find out if the Supreme Court will allow student loan debt to be forgiven could be waiting until this summer for an answer. That's because a decision on the cases may not come until June. During oral arguments, U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar argued the Biden administration has the authority to cancel hundreds of billions of dollars in student loan debt under the HEROES Act. Chinese officials say the country has been open and transparent regarding questions on the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. More from Lisa Taylor.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said that in response to recent comments made by U.S. Ambassador to China Nicholas Burns. She went on to point out that China has shared more data and research findings on the origins of COVID than any other country. Mao also denounced the U.S. for politicizing the issue and called on Burns to improve U.S.-China relations rather than the opposite. This comes in light of recent reports that the Energy Department and FBI suggested with varying levels of confidence that the COVID pandemic originated from a lab leak in Wuhan, China.
President Biden says House Republicans making demands in exchange for their votes to raise the debt ceiling are playing politics with the lives of Americans and the nation's economy.
Instead of making threats about default, let's take that off the table and let's have a conversation about how we're going to grow the economy, lower the cost, and reduce deficit, each of us.
While speaking in Virginia Beach, Virginia, Biden accused so-called MAGA Republicans of targeting the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid. A mobile lab that can provide instant air analysis has arrived in East Palestine, Ohio. EPA Regional Administrator Deborah Moore introduced the Tagabus during Tuesday's interagency briefing on the town's recovery from the February 3rd train derailment. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A new report finds 60% of all U.S. adults are living paycheck to paycheck. According to Lending Club, that's down slightly from last year in spite of inflation. It suggests some belt-tightening by consumers helped give their budgets a bit of breathing room. Those running for Chicago mayor are making a last-minute push for votes. Perry Williams has the details.
Incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot believes she's the only candidate who can beat projected frontrunner Paul Vallis in a runoff in April.
Not only do I deserve 4 more years as the city's mayor to continue the work that we have started, but also emphasizing to people that I am the only candidate that can beat Paul Vallis.
Vallis is confident that he'll finish on top.
I think we're finishing strong. Our message about public safety, about city affordability, about quality schools is resonating.
Polls are open today until 7 p.m.
Today is National Pancake Day. The tasty details from Mark Mayfield.
IHOP is celebrating by offering customers one free short stack of the popular breakfast food consisting of 3 buttermilk pancakes. The promotion is for dining guests only, and it's available at participating locations from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. IHOP has celebrated National Pancake Day for nearly 2 decades.
Seattle leads the list that may not surprise many people. A new survey conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau found that Seattle is still the nation's saddest large metro area. The Emerald City ranked number 1 with the highest percentage of respondents who answered they were feeling depressed and hopeless. In the first 2 weeks of February, nearly half of Seattle area adults reported feeling down. Riverside, San Bernardino took second place, and Phoenix came in third. Los Angeles and San Francisco made it to the top 10 saddest cities, while Washington, D.C., Chicago, New York, and Dallas rounded out the list. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Jackson Hewitt for your guaranteed biggest refund and 50% off tax prep. Switch to Jackson Hewitt. 50% off is a limited time offer for new clients filing at participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
And now for today's Roblox winter weather alert. iHeartland on Roblox has been walloped by a winter snowstorm. It is a winter wonderland. You can now ice skate at State Farm Park. In State Farm Neighborhood, you can compete in snowball fights, grab a hot cocoa and cookies, and more. There's also special events from your favorite artists and podcasters all month, along with scavenger hunts, exclusive content, and unique items. So enjoy the festive winter weather at iHeartland on Roblox. Head to iHeartRadio.com/iHeartland today.
You can't help but look at a car wreck on the side of the road. Yet we turn a blind eye to the things we should be looking at.
What are we doing? It's not like we didn't know. We know. We are turning our eyes.
The Glenn Beck Program.
I have no tolerance anymore for people who say, I just can't look at it.
Listen and look.
You don't have that option.
Glenn Beck. Mornings at 7.
What can you do? Here's something you can do.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Those dropping those likes and reacts that we certainly appreciate, including James Radcliffe, Angel Rueda, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and more. If you appreciate the ability to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland in such a format as this, drop that like, drop that react, give it a share, give it a subscribe, depending on the format you're on, and tell a friend, like particularly that part of it, to get involved in the conversation about the things that affect us here in the borderland. And definitely a major conversation going on the city manager and, well, the fate of what comes next. Now, it is noted by our news partners over there at KFOX 14, again, for those just joining us, that the city manager's contract has now been terminated, voted to do so. That coming in a 5-4 vote from city council today. And there's just a whole lot of implications that end up coming out of this. The mayor did cast the tie-breaking vote. Do have the response from what Mr. Gonzalez had to say after this vote was done. And here's what he had to say to our news partners at KFOX 14. I think that we just follow the strategic plan. We actually move up the strategic plan for April so council can make some changes if they want to do that. That way they can continue that process. We have very good processes in place that will support council's direction. We could have done that with this council, but they wanted different leadership. They wanted to exercise clause, Gonzalez explains. I mean, there'll be a whole lot more on there, referring to the clause as the termination clause that has now been exercised by that vote from this city council. The new Wish city council, again, about half of it exactly, goes up for vote every couple of years, as we do have those staggered elections now, still 4-year terms, along, of course, with the mayor. So different directions being sought. So some of those initial questions about kind of what comes next, who will replace him, will there be another search, or, well, we're already in the charter amendment coming up for May there again. Those details, at least on the dates of it, 66 days, 12 hours, and 51 minutes away, according to ebcountyvotes.com. Not having the city manager form of government on the ballot, even though there had been previous attestations by city council members. I want to say it was Representative Hernandez, but if it wasn't her exactly, it definitely was said by someone else there on city council that they were opposed, actually, to these amendments, not constitutional amendments, charter amendments. We have a charter in the city, not a constitution, because that's higher level. I guess it could be a constitution. Anyway, point is that we do have those changes, some things going on, some of the smaller tweaks, a lot of focus. And we're still going to delve into, don't worry, the climate charter and kind of the parts that end up coming from that. And a lot of other commentary out there, including from Willie Jenkins, saying very interesting in the termination of the city manager. Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Jerry Jacobit saying, all I can say is you get what you pay for. Interesting way to put it there. As well as a little bit earlier, I think we had another commentator, a former city council person that I may have neglected to mention there. That was an interesting perspective on that. I mean, a lot of commentary coming in. And so if you want to add your 2 cents, you can certainly do that over there. But also if you want to, again, on the social media, that is adding those comments. But if you want to call in, we do have that phone line open right now, 915 544-5876-544-KTSM is the number to call. So let's go ahead and delve into those lines here right now, as we'll certainly talk further about this and the other things affecting us here. We do have Tom on the west side here with us right now. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I went to the city council meeting this morning, and it was very interesting in terms of how many people were trying to rally to help Tommy Gonzalez stay in that position, and then also the counterpoints that were coming from different folks that were experienced in the city in many respects. Some previous city representatives and so forth. Now the thing is, though, $430,000 salary. You know, that was probably the biggest problem that we were hearing from comments of people saying that we're essentially not getting the bang for the buck for the salary. My question is, and maybe you know, do you remember what Joyce Wilson's salary was? Was it that much?
I've been trying to find some numbers on that. I'm not finding them immediately. I'm sure it's out there, but we were kind of scrambling to get on air with this massive change in focus for our programming today. I will tell you that the number that he was making at the start of his contract was about $230,000, give or take. So that is how much that has grown over this last 9 years so far. So that's kind of at least that bit of perspective I can say, but still looking for find the exact number of what Joyce Wilson was at kind of the end of it.
Well, some of the points that were brought up is that El Paso, for I guess a certain size city, we are number 1 or number 2 in property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're number 2 in the nation for, I believe, cities that are over 500,000 people. So, you know, it was a big problem trying to afford. You know, I didn't know why there couldn't have been maybe a resolution for him to take a pay cut and say, you want to stay in this position. Now, that might be odd. He might not be motivated after that, but there might have been another solution. There was Lupe De La O, who's the chairwoman of the RNC, the El Paso RNC. She had a tremendous point. She said, why can't the position really be more of a staff position under a normal salary? I mean, I personally can't see what we got from having this city manager format at this cost. You know, the bang for the buck. I really have not seen it. It's a lot of power placed under one person, and
certainly,
you know, our representation gets diluted. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that and see what comments you have, and I'll go ahead and get off so somebody else can jump in.
Well, thank you for the perspective, and particularly since you were there at City Council, one of the about 30 or so that signed up for a public comment there, were you? Not quite? Okay.
I did not make public comment. No,
okay.
I just jumped in at the last minute to see how this was going to go. One other comment I do have is there was a lot of discussion about the funding that's going to take place and what we're going to do about the suspected surge of migrants that they're expecting due to the change in the law. I forget the number of the law, but if that goes away on May 5th, then they're expecting another massive surge of migrants coming in. And quite frankly, I was not impressed or not happy with the preparation of how they're going to plan to handle another massive surge of migrants that are going to be coming in. And quite frankly, they were quite cavalier about it. You know, it was almost like the tone was, we expect them to come and they're kind of welcome. You know, I'm sorry, this asylum, just letting somebody claim asylum and just deciding to walk into our city is it's not going to work. You know, our city's going to get overrun again. They're going to run up the credit card on terms of putting these people, what they were talking about is putting them in hotels again. And it's really looking like a potential disaster is coming in early May if they overturn it's basically the law that says it has to do with COVID.
Title 42, I think you're talking about? Okay.
Go ahead.
Title 42, I think you're talking about?
Yeah, there you go. Title 42. So anyway.
Well, I appreciate the comment, the call, and your perspective on having been in the meeting there today. We'll definitely talk more about this, but thank you very much for the call.
Thanks.
I mean, again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Before we hit that next break, a few things on this here. So looking back into the archive here and finding some of the things, looking like, yeah, definitely Tommy Gonzalez's initial contract was in about the $230,000 range. But what I'm finding here is listed is that the actual Joyce Wilson salary was a bit closer to kind of that range, actually. I think sourcing KVIA from 2014, actually, in this case, $227,000 as city manager. So that's the first one I found here. So, and that was after her, what was her actual total number there, being on when she actually started there? Well, 2004. So give or take a decade there. So that amount of growth and change versus this one. Listen, I'm not going to be knocking Mr. Gonzalez on negotiating a incredibly lucrative contract on his own here. That's not something I'm not exactly mad at the dude. Let's just put it that way. But the fact that city council and that this was, I mean, it's a very high salary. And if you're saying that big salary means it's bad or scary, like, no. But also look at as a previous commenter said, what was it? You get what you pay for, and sometimes overpaying doesn't necessarily make it better. I mean, the way we even format it and have it be there, it'll just say the amount of city council meetings that I've attended ended up going to executive session with statements being said maybe by city council members ahead of it being like, oh, we think about this. So, but now we have to go into consultation and find out things and then come out and be like essentially voting a completely reverse position without much actually being said. Was the fact that it happened at all is kind of concerning to me, because if you truly want it to be city council lead, city manager executes, the upstream of that saying that, well, no, city manager telling city council or the city maybe not individually the city manager, but the city manager side of things, informing city council what they have to do. And if they're not, they're going to have problems, those kind of things. Like, sure, give them good information, but still, like, leadership, that the flow of leadership is still supposed to be what it is. There are other comments out there, including the idea of it. Eric McNabb saying that he was hitting benchmarks set by the city when the contract was first negotiated. I'm doubtful that those improvements would have happened without the city manager. The metrics were competently arrived at when initially negotiated. So that's an example of, that's an interesting perspective there. I'm not sure I agree with it, but let's just juxtapose that with what else we got going on here when you're saying that everyone else is idiots and completely indefensible for disagreeing with you. If you want to talk about the issues, please, let's talk about the issues. I'm 100% on board with this. But if you're just going to say everyone else that disagrees with me is stupid, come on. The whole I know you are, but what am I level of argument? Yeah, that's not actually discussion. That's just you verbally berating and trolling. If you don't want to troll, you're welcome here. If you're going to be trolling, you're going to be removed. We've said this way too many times before. Anyway, let's go and take that next break. Got more calls in line, and we'll keep getting to them here. If you're having any trouble getting through, particularly anyone in the comments, let us know, because we'll try to deal with it as best we can. But should be able to get in. To get that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An earlier crash in the lower valley on Gateway East at East Lake is causing a pretty big backup. You can see by the freeway cameras, it's a 20-minute delay, a 3-vehicle accident blocking the left lane right now. Delays on the 54 southbound in the upper valley. From McCombs down to Trans Mountain, it's a 10-minute delay. I-10 westbound, Sunland Park up to Trans Mountain, it's a 5-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big. Now get $15 off signs, banners, and posters when you spend $75 or more. Offer ends 4/15. Visit staples.com/printbig for details. This is your sign to try Staples, where your prints are perfect guaranteed.
On the podcast Really No Really, join best friends Jason Alexander and Peter Tilden, along with experts, newsmakers, and celebrities, in a search for answers to life's most baffling, intriguing, and annoying questions. You know, those things that make you go, really? No, really?
I think there was a 17-year-old in Rhode Island who ran a candidate that was a deepfake.
Really? Wait, that's news to me. That's really no really right there.
Really no really.
Listen to Really Know Really on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-337-4548. That's 800-337-4548. 800-337-4548.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media channels, which often give me way more life than is really warranted, because, yeah, I revel in it, and if you think that you're going to berate me into submission, I can't even finish that phrase. It's so ridiculous here, including the idea of one time I'm going to feed the trolls today. I know it's a bad habit of mine, but I got to at least keep it there. People saying that, I'm just the worst person ever. Well, one person anyway, is just hilarious to me, including very specifically, it was Eric McNabb saying Polk just promotes right-wing views on local issues to deceive the El Paso public for the economic interests of El Paso's billionaires and corporations. Shameless. Again, I appreciate the sash and crown you give me of the official spokesperson of the rich and powerful in town here. Again, don't know if I really deserve it, but if you're going to determine to be putting that to me here, but really the point about saying that no one's sharing trolling here, only facts. Really? You're going to call this a fact? Because if you want to look at what I have factually said, it's that I've pointed out what is going on with the contract and the negotiations and what this vote has ended up being, and you're calling that right wing. It almost sounds like you're getting into a reality is right wing kind of bias here, because all I've said, and I mean, we've had other commentators that have also mentioned here sharing their opinions, but also if you don't know the difference between a fact and an opinion, I really don't know how to help you. I would hope that your education when it came to philosophy would have done you there. But a fact is something that is verifiable. You can point out and see the details come from it there, like saying the sky is blue. That can be verified. You can look at the wavelengths of the mediums of light and electromagnetic radiation that are received at the ground level that should display it as such a hue that we see and describe as blue. But if you're saying that, well, you suck, that's not a fact, my dude. That's an opinion. So if you keep coming down to that here and you think that those are facts, either you're not as well informed on these things that you are, or you're just trolling and hoping to get the attention, which is why, again, I'm only going to do this once this show, but because it's too tempting to make that the whole damn show. But we got important things to talk about otherwise. So consider this your attention for the moment, and we're going to actually talk about the things affecting us here in the borderland. Oh, geez. And yeah, dude, if you need to make friends, go out and make them, because you're not going to find the attention you want here. Anyway, other actual comments and things being brought up there, including a James Ratcliffe saying a positive thing about this is city councils that the previous representative for District Number 1, Peter Schwarzbein, is gone. I mean, if you see that as an important and good thing, but also let's just go into the idea that this was not even just a fucking menace making another decent point there. This is not even something that is solely being brought up on essentially ideological levels, as kind of you're attesting to there. Specifically, you can go and see verifiable fact for yourself over on Instagram. So I go by right now, actually, post from at least being shared by Veronica Carvajal, former city mayor candidate, and a repost from Justicia Fronteriza, one of the ones that has put a number of those other items on the actual agenda for this climate, well, not the climate issue necessarily, but the other charter amendments thing, saying the posted is putting up there, Tommy Gonzalez has got to go, listing essentially a list of grievances, among other things. Oligarchs love Tommy. Tommy has failed to protect us during the worst COVID outbreaks. Tommy refused to shut down the most contagious businesses. Tommy used the pandemic to cut as an excuse to cut essential city services. Tommy used the pandemic to stop spay and neuter. Under Tommy's supervision, EPPD has faced multiple lawsuits throughout the fight to save Duranguito, and in 2017, BPP hired extra cops to investigate protesting police. Tommy hates the environment. I'm just reading from their list here. So if you think that this is solely a partisan issue, I think you need to take off the tinted glasses there as well and look at that there are reasons that people will have positions you disagree with that does not make them immediately reprehensible. We're just getting into the whole deplorable type of reasoning when it comes to that. And again, how well did that work out? I'm going to contest not that well. Anyway, a lot of commentary coming on that here. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now, because we are taking those calls, even if I have a sneaking suspicion we may have some issues for it. Give it a shot. If you can't get us through, send me an email, andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. We can certainly do that there. But getting back to those phone lines now, again, that number 915-544 5876 544 KTSM. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
So much to talk about, so little time to talk about it. But I want to say, right out of the box, I have been following this lawsuit by Dominion against Fox Noise, a.k.a. Foul Noise Network. They are going to lose. They are going to so flat get lost. And my hope is that Foul Noise Network gets knocked off the air. You'll never, ever, ever, ever hear about them ever again. These people are acolytes, if you will, if that's the right word, follow Joseph Goebbels. My goodness, this is the United States of America. Democracy, yeah, First Amendment, all this other kind of stuff. I'm a fan of that. But when you go out there and you flat lie to so many ignorant, poorly educated nut jobs out there, this is a danger to the United States of America and to our democracy. And that's my opening rant.
Get what you're referring to there. I mean, a little bit far afield from where we usually get to, as Fox is even part of our waves here. But let's just say this, that, yeah, telling demonstrable falsehoods on there actually is, and that's what this case goes along with, is, depending on the format, libel or slander. I believe, if I've got my definitions right, libel is the printed version and slander is the kind of in any other format and medium. So yeah, Dominion, remember the exact name of the company, but the one that has certain election services, saying that they lost millions, if not near billions dollars worth of value in contracts based on that, on what were not verifiable. So let's just say, when I talk about things, when we put out issues or getting into anything besides the opinions, shall we say, we tend to go with the, what is verifiable or what is at least true, as is what hope is exemplified when it comes to the other big issues we've dealt with, say, during the Cielo Vista incident that happened a couple of weeks back. We were not willing to speculate what was going on. We were wanting to know what has been confirmed, what is reportable, and that's just the way we do it here on this program, and we'll continue to do so.
Well, good for you. You need, and this is another reason I love listening to you. You're a fair-minded person, Andrew. The whole shtick, the way you go about it, you're squared away. You're down and dirty. Correct. I'm talking about the larger issue here, when you've got so many ignorant people out there that just absolutely have to believe the most outrageous nonsense in the world and get reinforced with that nonsense by the vehicle. But by that I mean that these nut jobs, Foul Noise Network, Newsmax, and the rest of these nut jobs, not to mention the radio people like this guy that follows you. What's his name? That beady-eyed little creep, 4-time heart attack guy, squeaky guy. What's his name? McLooney bin, that nut job. My goodness, like I said, I think the way things work out is, in the longer scheme of things, these people are going to get shut down and knocked out of the box because I think the majority of people realize that this is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense to go out there and purposely lie, knowing that you're purposely lying to so many ignorant people out there to keep them just so you can make $1. What is this nonsense? Oh, my goodness. I can't get over that.
Okay, I can understand that you're not a fan of that network and the things that they talk about, or even some of our other presenters on air. You don't have to be. It's not how it ends up working out there. But I will say this, that expecting it to be gone and go away forever, I don't see that being the outcome here. Will there be huge penalties? Sure. But let's also look at market and demand. Okay, I'm not in favor of confirmation bias of having a position and something that I really want this to be the way it is, and then looking only for the things that confirm that. It's not a way to go through life. And because life and frankly reality doesn't fit nice, neat narratives, it's tempting, and the human psyche loves to do it, to put things in neat little boxes and think like, oh, I understand it entirely and that's just the way it is. But reality does not have to conform to our expectations. In fact, just the opposite. So that is so much to say that, yeah, not exactly something that I peruse that often or end up looking at except to know what is being discussed. But I also think that the expectation that it's just going to like poof go away, even from such a massive case that this is, I don't see that being correct or really feasible either, because okay, the Super Bowl, there were all those ads. I mean, it was on Fox for like gut filled. I mean, he has been rated one of the number ones there, even if against not quite my cup of tea. There's clearly a demand in a market there for it, and that has been one of the most pervasive things about how news coverage happens, about what people will actually tune into, because you could have some of the best reporting on the things that are going right in the world, and yet people will still tend to tune into the things that are about what's going wrong, what's bad, what's awful, because it's kind of a hack in the human psyche. So much to say, I don't totally buy your prediction that this will be the end of it. I think there's always a market for this kind of a thing.
Well, of course, there always is, because stupid people want to follow stupid stuff. But let me say this. If they get knocked out of the box, which I hope they will, but I'm going to tell you, and Ben and Barbara are going to be they're going to go ballistic, because they won't have anybody nut jobs to listen to. This is going to be really interesting. They'll be calling you more often because they won't be able to listen to Foul Noise Network. And that's the end of my rant.
All right, well, I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay, take care, Andrew.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Again, if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. El Paso City Council voted today to terminate the contract of City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. The motion was sponsored by newly elected City Rep Brian Kennedy. Mayor Oscar Leeser broke the tie in favor of terminating the contract. Gonzalez, who has been city manager since 2014, will stay on the job for another 4 months, as stipulated in his contract. Gonzalez earns more than $430,000 a year. Under a previous city council last year, his contract had been extended by 5 years. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Eastbound on the border highway at Fonseca Drive, there's an accident that's blocking the right shoulder. Gateway East at Eastlake, an earlier 3-vehicle accident blocking the left lane and still causing a backup, about a 10-minute delay. Accident reported I-10 eastbound at the red on-ramp, and slow traffic I-10 westbound from Sunland Park up to Trans Mountain. It's a 7-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. It looks like a gusty and warm one for tomorrow. Windy conditions, southwest winds 35 up to 45 5 miles per hour. Going to see highs in the lower 70s for our Wednesday, and then big changes for your Thursday. Mostly cloudy, windy, and colder. 40% chance of flurries for your Thursday morning, so bundle up for your Thursday. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Texas Health and Human Services. Life can take a turn for anyone, and if it has for you, remember that there's so much for you to turn to. We all need supportive people and healthy outlets in our lives, so we don't have to face hard times alone. Visit turntosupportstx.org for the help that's right for you.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Hiring heating up? Indeed's hiring platform makes it easy to attract, screen, and interview candidates all in one place. Sponsor a post and instantly receive a shortlist of quality candidates on Indeed whose resumes match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
There are things that go together that make mornings better. Coffee and cream, bacon and eggs, pancakes and syrup.
Let's take a look at traffic and weather together.
Traffic and weather. Yeah. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. Updates all day long.
General things like that help me get through my day.
Before you head out, get together with our traffic and weather. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod. Noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Okay, we have some calls coming through. Again, that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, but we're still having some calls that come through, but actually we can't even get to answer them there. So wondering if we're having maybe some kind of impact there. If you're able to get through, I mean, we've had some people saying they haven't had any issues, so still trying to see if there is an issue. It's kind of phantom at this point, but if you want to, keep trying. We have lines available, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. So if you're, best advice I can give at this point, even if we're not sure there's a problem, if you're trying to call on a landline, try a cell phone or vice versa. Best I can say, but we'll keep trying to push ahead with what we got there. So let's get back to some more of those calls on the line that we do have. We do have Joe on the west side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, a couple of things. One, this issue with Tommy Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take? Why did he get canned? What happened here?
So I'll be honest with you, the city council members that put this item on the agenda, not a whole lot they've said of this exact circumstance. Like this vote itself, all that exists on the actual agenda, kind of the packet that supports there, is just saying that they are reviewing this in line with what has previously been reviewed in August, I think is what it ended up coming through. But for this one, I will say, based on the conversations we've had, like say with Brian Kennedy, again, now city rep for City Council District 1, during the election process and the lead up to it. There was a lot of kind of almost commentary on, I mean, both the individual, the pay. There was an answer to a previous question, not necessarily yours there, about, what has actually this individual done. Again, Mr. Gonzalez in his position. There was a kind of a, during the time of the contract negotiations going on about what exactly is, the justification for it. They did come out with a list and mention that, hey, these are the accomplishments we see here. I've been trying to find that here for a minute. It was a statement I ended up getting sent. So if I find that, I'll try to get it up before the end of the show or the next one. But Brian Kennedy, at the very least, himself, and it's been kind of brought up in other ways about kind of questions about the city manager form of government overall. Now, certainly there are a few lightning rod issues, such as pay, some of the other ones we read coming from the Justicia Fronteriza group as well. So there's a kind of a myriad of swirling issues going around this. It had previously been that city council was demonstrably happy with Tommy Gonzalez. I mean, the fact that his pay had ballooned to be up to that $450,000 a year and the current $430,000 a year about there is literally evidence of that, but also written into the contract, because anything above a fails to meet expectation kind of rating was resulting in an actual improvement in the pay rate, benefits, etc. So again, not faulting him for the hustle when it comes to setting an actual setting a contract. I wish I was in a position to do such a similar thing, but the fact that this is ultimately not itself a position that is, responsive to the voters. It's not voted on, but it is voted on by those that we elect. So there's kind of a second order degree of removal from it. So this is a lot to say, and probably more than you're looking at there. I don't think there's any one issue, but a bunch of different perspectives and maybe dissatisfactions that have come to a head here, including that of the mayor, among other things. I mean, his some notable vetoes on the process last year, and of course, casting the tie-breaking vote that has now put us on this course we are on, leads to, again, more questions about what may come next, I think, is the real big picture here.
Well, Andrew, you have said a lot, but you have said nothing. And I was hoping that you've got some insight into the city. You've been around the block. I think I'm going to give you some insight.
Sure.
I think this whole fiasco downtown has cost a lot of people a lot of money, and it's cost a lot of headache. And there's a lot of people that have the power in the city that are just kind of fed up. They're done. And somebody's head was going to roll. Now, do you think that could be more of a discussion that we should be having, as opposed to 10 minutes of your narration where you really didn't say anything? But let's get to the core issues. What happened?
So
I think you have a good idea as to what happened.
So the way you're putting it forth here is essentially that what happened with the arena, the kind of delays that ended up happening there, and the ultimate removal of it, that this is kind of coming to a head on his head then.
Somebody's head was going to roll, Andrew. A lot of people lost a lot of money on this deal. It was poorly planned, poorly executed, and there's always going to have to be a scapegoat. And there's a couple of power players in this town that run this city, and they just had enough. And I hate to make the same analogy as with the mafia, but when you take off the powers that be, somebody's head is going to roll.
I get what you're saying, and the only reason I'm not entirely inclined to agree with you there, I mean, I see and I can see parts of what you're getting at, is that at the very least, the scapegoating kind of isn't there. At least currently, I mean, we're still kind of in the aftermath of this immediate vote. As of last check, as we were on air, actually, that meeting was, the city council meeting was still in progress, I do believe. So, okay, it has now ended. So whether or not there's actually there, but I gotta say, the blaming, like, for the, say, failure of the arena, if that's where you're coming at it, that line hasn't exactly been linked there yet. So that's why I'm thinking, like, okay, maybe, but if they're truly wanting to do this as a scapegoat, usually you make it a pretty loud process that this person was the problem kind of thing. And I guess I'm not seeing that at this point yet anyway.
Yeah, well, I was kind of wanting to get your insight, because I think you've been around long enough to know how the inner workings of this city are. And it's not going to be publicized to anybody, but I just want to throw that out there, that somebody was going to have to pay for this debacle. There's a lot of money that's been lost, a lot of people that got displaced from their homes, and now we have taxpayers owning a lot of property downtown that is sitting vacant. At some point, there's going to have to be a reckoning, and somebody's going to have to answer for it.
Again, an interesting point and an interesting possibility there. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot more put forth with this. Again, there's a lot of anger that I find from a certain different groups when it comes to the performance of the city manager, and that certainly could be a part of it. But I don't know. We'll see. Again, even the people who put this item on the agenda were kind of closed-lipped about what it is, as opposed to just wanting to see it kind of. I mean, this was the ultimate outcome, I think, that they were seeking since they were proposing it as such. It was Brian Kennedy that put this, not even just the item on, but saying that I want to see this contract terminated as per the clauses of it. So this has been pretty well kind of focused in on by his well, since his time in government, in this local government as part of this. So that we'll see. I'll be looking at that perspective, the way you're putting out there, see if there's more to kind of go along with that or not as we get kind of further into this process. We got 120 days going for now.
Andrew, I mean, but really, there's got to be a reason. You cannot just terminate somebody, and I'm sure there's going to be a cost factor, but it's going to cost us a lot of money to get rid of this fella. I've known that gentleman for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
He does not do a bad job. I don't think that his salary was justifiable. But if you're going to terminate somebody for cause, tell us what the cause is. Well, this is not rocket science.
See, that's just the thing. I think the clause that they're working under, we're going to need to see more of the documentation coming out of this and such, is that I do believe this is not termination for cause, because there are different parts of that. I mean, yeah, if there were very bad things, crimes being committed, not saying they are, but those would be termination for cause clauses. And the idea of there having to be a payout, even if there were, say, literal malfeasance or criminal activity going on, would be on its face ridiculous. To my understanding, at least we've got so far right now, as this has still been developing this afternoon, is that this was not necessarily for cause. This was just we are using the termination clause of your contract in order to do something different.
Well, again, as a taxpayer, that's a lot of money, and we've had him on the job for a lot of years. If you're going to get rid of the guy, you just come out and have the courage. And there's a different term I would use, but I will not on the air.
Fair enough.
But tell us what the cause is.
So I'll agree with you in general on that idea of making this transparency is usually a pretty good thing whenever it comes to the idea of particularly what, government this close to us is doing. And I mean, I guess I'm just going to refer back to what Mayor Leeser did say during this, that this is not an evaluation or performance evaluation on the city manager, quote unquote, is what he said during this. So I think this is maybe more emblematic of a potential sea change coming. But again, what you're talking about there is an interesting aspect that we'll have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I got you. And one last point I want to make to you, Andrew. I brought this up before on previous calls.
Sure.
This is more referencing your particular show, so please do not take offense. Constructive criticism.
Sure.
But the amount of people that you have calling, I think your show would be better served by having a larger audience in terms of different prospects. It gets kind of old when you get the same people that call in every day. And I noticed that you give the same people that call every day, you give them pretty much free reign to say some really outlandish and critical things of our leaders. And I'll take one person in particular, a gentleman that just called. This guy, Frankie, from Mesilla.
Mm-hmm.
He calls in just about every day, and you never cut him off. You give him free reign, but he says some really nasty things about our political leaders, and there's no respect there. And so if that's the case, I would like to end with this final note. If it's okay for people to call in and say the type of things they say about our political leaders, I just want to leave you with this last comment regarding that particular caller. Frankie from Mesilla, every time he calls, he cannot finish a sentence without stuttering. He's stuttering Frankie. And then if not, he does his foghorn impersonation. Bah, 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 bah. What is that guy? I mean, I know he's an old man, and I give him some leeway by doing it, but if you're going to insult other people that are political leaders, look at yourself in the mirror. I mean, the guy sounds like an idiot, cannot finish a sentence without stuttering. Then he does his foghorn leghorn impersonation. The guy's a joke, and he's not even from El Paso. So just want to leave you with that. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I hope Frankie is old enough to take a little of his own medicine, which I think he's older than dirt. But I hope he could take it and parting thought is let other people call. Get some different younger people call, different perspectives, because it's always the same people. And it's comical when Frankie calls because the guy can't finish a sentence without stuttering halfway through it. But give some other people a chance. I think it'll make your show better. That's what I want to leave you with.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, I appreciate the point, and we do take constructive criticism and do the best we can with it. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Have a great one. Bye-bye, Andrew.
Let me just say this, that, I mean, the thing about our form of government, the concept of representative democracy in general, is that it's kind of defined by those that show up. So we don't place any of artificial limits. We don't have, like, a frequent flyer list or a preferred call in line or anything like that. The number is the number, 915-544-5876. So there are some that are more interesting and, let's just say, consistent in their efforts, because honestly, particularly when we have I still think we are having issues with the phone line today. This is a one-off, or hopefully not more than a one-off, but those that are willing to more tenacity seems to be the major difference in those who call in versus those who don't. We certainly take newer callers and would certainly encourage it, because a discussion is only as good as the amount and quality of the opinions going into it. So maybe not totally quality what we're chasing here, but the idea of having more people involved with it. I'll also say this: the vast majority of our audience here, I'm not trying to claim any kind of silent majority representation here, but the vast majority of our audience is doing things like driving home, listening while at work, or on their app. So don't expect everyone that tunes in here to comment on the show do those things. We make it available for those that want to really make that back and forth as much as possible available. And if you want to take advantage of it, I often encourage people to do so. Maybe we'll make it a little bit more explicit, particularly for Fridays, but we often have the people wanting to dip that toe and make it that new first time and trying it out on Fridays. So no hate, animosity, or even disagreement with those that are choosing not to call in, or those that do end up calling in. But I would agree that different perspectives, different opinions, and more of them often ends up being a good thing. Bernadette Pandacol saying, yeah, it's whoever gets through on the call. So it's not exactly a Darwinism kind of thing, but it's again, who's ever willing to call the most whenever we got those lines coming up. We try to make it clear whenever lines are coming up. And again, the hint is whenever one is and Renato Rivera saying we're seeking the Andrew Stern show. Oh man, I don't have that kind of a budget either. But so, okay, again, I take criticism and ideas of it, and though I kind of agree with you on some of the goals there anyway, even if implementation is maybe a little bit fleeting. Anyway, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, till we got coming up for you on the show, because there's a whole lot more to delve into. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Lots of slowing eastbound on the Border Highway after a crash. Border Highway eastbound at Fonseca Drive. That's up on the right shoulder. 20-minute delays from the Patriot to Midway. An earlier 3-vehicle accident in the Lower Valley Gateway East at East Lake is still causing delays. About 15-minute delays. 3-vehicle accident blocking the left lane there. Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound through downtown from Cotton to the Hunter Viscount exit. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The U.S. government's broke, per a new report from the U.S. Treasury. It's bad, so let's dig in. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts.
On the podcast, The Last Soviet, Lance Bass from NSYNC shares his own experiences of astronaut training in Russia. Yes, that's true. And tells the story of the final cosmonaut, a man trapped in space while his nation crumbled to the ground.
His name is Sergei Krikalev. He's a Soviet cosmonaut, and he's manning the world's only space station, the pride and joy of the USSR.
Listen to The Last Soviet on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at inspiresleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Texting enrolls you into reoccurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T.
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text HUNK to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text HUNK to 42424. That's HUNK to 42424.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.
Rosetta Stone, where language is learned. rosettastone.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you all for tuning in, however you may have been doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free, reliable iHeartRadio app. We're still doing the whole one call a day thing, but we, of course, will do it again tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So some of the things that we will be working on, including that kind of analysis, breakdown, the responses back and forth on that climate charter amendment. So don't worry, we haven't forgotten about that, but we got a lot more to delve into there. I mean, it's 9 pages of legalese, 7 substantive pages. That on its own will be a whole ding-damn show. But they got more there, and also more interviews coming for you, including on, like, say, Texas tax rates. Where do they rank, and what are some of those impacts? So a whole lot more going on, but we'll have to do it again tomorrow, as we are super out of time here for this show. So I want to say thank you to everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show in any way, because seriously, if you want to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland, you're in the right places. We will do that. So until then, until next time, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Lots of slowing eastbound on the Border Highway after a crash. Border Highway eastbound at Fonseca Drive. That's up on the right shoulder. 20-minute delays from the Patriot to Midway. An earlier 3-vehicle accident in the Lower Valley Gateway East at East Lake is still causing delays. About 15-minute delays. 3-vehicle accident blocking the left lane there. Slow traffic on the I-10 eastbound through downtown from Cotton to the Hunter Viscount exit. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Lenny went to college and racked up huge debt.
A little bit over $100,000.
For a degree he couldn't use? Now what?
I had a friend that went to my computer career and they talked to me about it.
He was done in just months.
I did do it online.
They even helped him get hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at My Computer Career.
It worked for me, and I know it can work for you.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late.
Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day, or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Winter weather watches and warnings are in effect from coast to coast as winter continues its stranglehold on the nation.
Records, milestones, firsts, lasts, and everything in between. What happened today in sports history on iHeartRadio?
What's going on, fellow sports fans? It's Andy West. Let's look back on this day in sports history, February 23rd. We'll start off today in 1980. Eric Heiden wins his 5th gold medal and shatters the world record by 6 seconds in the 10,000-meter speed skating event at the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. Today in 1985, a replay you've probably seen a few times in bad sports moments, Indiana head coach Bob Knight is ejected after throwing a chair across the court in a game between the Hoosiers and Purdue. And today in 2014, Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins a rain-delayed Daytona 500 a decade after his first victory in the Great American Race. Earnhardt also snapped a 55-race winless stretch that dated back to 2012. It also ended a frustrating sequence at Daytona that had seen Earnhardt finish second in 3 of the previous 4 Daytona 500s.
Now you know. Today in sports history on iHeartRadio.
This is Andrew J. Polk with News Radio 690 KTSM. 2 male suspects are in custody tonight after a shooting at the Cielo Vista Mall food court that left 1 male dead and 3 in the hospital. According to El Paso police, an off-duty officer working security at the mall responded to the shooting in about 3 minutes after it was reported at 5:05 p.m. Wednesday afternoon and apprehended the first suspect. Interim El Paso Chief of Police Peter Pasilla says there is no longer a danger to the community, though the mall itself is considered an active crime scene and will remain closed off until the investigation is complete in the coming days. All parked vehicles at the mall are considered part of the crime scene. El Paso police will lead the investigation with the assistance of numerous state and federal agencies. The FBI has established a tip line for all video and photo evidence from those who were at the mall. You're asked to submit as soon as possible, if any of such is available, to FBI
records, milestones, firsts, lasts, and everything in between. What happened today in sports history on iHeartRadio?
What's going on, fellow sports fans?
And now a look back at This Week in History on iHeartRadio.
This week in 1949, from Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth, Texas, the Lucky Lady II, a B-50 Super Fortress, takes off on the first non-stop round-the-world flight. Under the command of Captain James Gallagher.
And now a look back at This Week in History on iHeartRadio.
This week in 1940, Hattie McDaniel becomes the first African-American actress to win an Oscar. In the ceremony, Gone with the Wind is honored with 8 Oscars. The movie swept the prestigious Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Cinematography, Art Direction, Film Editing, and Actress categories. However, the most momentous award that night undoubtedly went to Hattie McDaniel for her portrayal of Mammy for Best Supporting Actress. This week in
And now a look back at This Week in History on iHeartRadio.
This week in 1961, President John F. Kennedy issues Executive Order number 10924, establishing the Peace Corps as a new agency within the Department of State. The same day, he sent a message to Congress asking for permanent funding for the agency, which would send trained American men and women to foreign nations to assist in development efforts. This week in 1972, Pioneer 10, the world's first outer planetary probe, is launched from Cape.
Looking back at the world of sports, it's the iHeartRadio Weekend Sports Time Capsule.
What's happening, fellow sports fans? It's Andy West, and I'm here to take you on a journey back to this week in sports history. We'll start off this week back in 1935. The New York Yankees released Babe Ruth, and he signs with the Boston Braves. He'd start the season, but retire later in the year. This week in 1952, the Boston Celtics and the Fort Wayne Pistons tip off at midnight in what was called a Milkman Special after an Ice Volleys performance at Boston Garden. Bob Cousy of the Celtics scores 24 before 2,368 fans in an 88-67 win. This week in 1980, the U.S. Olympic hockey team stuns the Soviet Union with a 4-3 victory in the medal round of the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. The game would become known as the Miracle on Ice. This week in 1985, in what would become a famous sports image, Indiana coach Bob Knight is ejected 5 minutes into the Hoosiers' 72-63 loss to Purdue when he throws a chair across the court. Also this week in 1985, Jim Kelly of the Houston Gamblers passes for a USFL record 574 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 34-33 comeback win over the LA Express. Yes, that's the same Jim Kelly who would eventually be a Hall of Famer for the Bills. And this week in 2003, Michael Jordan becomes the first 40-year-old in NBA history to score at least 40 points, getting 43 in the Wizards' 89-86 win over the Nets.
And that's just some of what happened this week in sports history. The Weekend Sports Time Capsule on iHeartRadio.